What is up, you guys? This is Manak. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm your host to get your next ABAP certificate. So today we are going to talk about the third chapter, and we'll cover the ABAP types and data objects. So let's talk about the topics which we are going to talk in this chapter. This would be we'll talk about ABAP data types and data objects. So we are going to differentiate between these, and then we can talk about how to define data objects. And well, using predefined types which are already defined by SAP system and the generic data types. So this would be our second topic. Third, we'll understand the difference between the local and the global data types. So let's do our next topic, and then we'll look about the visibility. Talk about the visibility of data objects. And finally, we are gonna understand the different kinds of structures which are available. So that would be understand the structures and deep structures, and we'll differentiate between the, let's call it that way, differentiate between them. So we are gonna cover this topic, so this won't be a very long chapter, but well, this is the basics of the first thing which you should know about a programming language if you start coding. So let's talk about data types. Well, data types are required to define the technical attributes of a data object. Well, depending on the data type, you might have to define the length and number of decimal points to fully define a data object in the program. Well, you can either use a predefined or the ABAP dictionary data types to define a data object. Well, you can also define local data types within the program, or use them to define data objects in the program. So data objects are basically temporary storage in a program, and it'll occupy memory and they exist only for the duration of the program. Well, in this topic, we are going to learn about the data types, data objects, and difference between them. And you should also learn about the elementary data types, the local data types, the global data types. You will also learn how to define data types and data objects and use them in the ABAP program. And we are going to talk about the visibility of the data objects. So, the objective of this portion of the test of your ABAP certification would be is to test your basic understanding of the ABAP data types and data objects in the ABAP programming language. Well, the certification exam expects the developers like you to have a good understanding of these topics from the chapter ABAP. This is the end. Sorry. All right. So let's talk about the different well, in general, like if you know any programming language, you would know that programming language require variables or fields to actually store the data locally in the program. Well, a data object in the ABAP language is also referred to as a variable, as you would commonly know it. Variable, I'm sorry. There you go. And is a temporarily internal storage within the application. The type of operation that can be performed on the variable or data object, well, it depends on the data type. So, well, the ABAP language is predefined and generic data types, and the syntax for the data declaration for the data object is dependent on the type of data you use. So, like any programming language, the data declaration within the ABAP object can be either global or local. The scope and validity of the data object depends on the definition of the data object within the program. Therefore, you should have a good understanding of the differences between the predefined generic data types and the users within the program, the syntax, and most importantly, the valid operations of the data object. So let's start with the first topic which we are going to cover in this chapter. It's data about data types and data objects. Well, programs in any programming language work with local data, and this data is stored in the program variable, and variables have names and type attributes which can be either numeric or string or character, or depends on the type of data that is supported by the language. Well, in ABAP language, the variable is called a data object. So In any other language, we call it a variable. In ABAP, we have a specific name, which is called a data object, and is defined concretely by a data type. So our data objects are always defined with the keyword data. So this is the keyword, and you can use ABAP type or local type or global type to define your data objects. So the data type is just a description and does not occupy any memory. It has to be defined in the program independently, and you can either define your own data type based on the predefined data types or global types, and local data types are defined in the program, whereas global data types are defined in the ABAP dictionary. So when I'm in ABAP dictionary, it's the ABAP, it's a part of the ABAP where you store your data. So in the tables, local data types are defined using your types statement, and whereas global data types are defined in the ABAP dictionary using data elements, type pools, or program or type groups, table types, structures, and tables. Well, a data dictionary objects such as tables and structures and their components can also be used to define data types. Local data types are available just to the program in which you're defined, where the global data types are available to all programs in a SAP system. So what are data types used for? So let's jot the points down. So data types are used for, data types are used for, first of all, let's see the definition of data objects. Let's well, they define the technical attributes of the data object, how the data objects are stored in the memory, and what operations are possible of the data objects based on the data type. Well, let's talk about the second thing. Data types. How do I frame it? Data types are also used for the definition of definition of interface parameters. So I'm going to talk about what are interfaces and all in great depth in the future lessons. But for now, just know that data types are used to for the definition of interface parameters. The type of interface parameter determines the type of actual parameters or the values that are actually transferred within a modular unit is called. The modular unit can either be a function module or a method or even a subroutine. So there's that, and let's see the next. Let's see the next use of data type. So data types, where it is actually used for the definition of input and output fields in the ABAP program. So let's write it down. So can be also used. There you go. Also used for the definition of input and as well as output fields in the ABAP program. So in the ABAP program, so basically they're used to declare. They are used to declare, say, declare the parameters and select options. For those of you who have no idea what parameters and select options are, we are going to talk about that. Just for now, know that these are the selection criteria we used in a ABAP program, in an ABAP report, to take user input and use that in our program to manipulate with our data. So parameters and select options for say program, how do I put it, selection screen? Yeah, program selection screen, right. So and also you can use them. Let's add this thing up just to be sure we cover. And also for Dan Pro screen fields. Okay, so so know that parameters and select options are used for that. The exact uses we will see it in the future chapters. Of course, I'm going to cover everything. Just know that Dan Pro screen fields. Well, these are created to be a bit more specific in the screen painter. There you go. So screen painter is where you would define web down pro screens. So yeah, we use parameters and select options are there. All right, so the BAP. Well, let's talk about a little bit about how the BAP data types can be classified. So let's see data types basically. Where's my cursor? So data types can be either a predefined data type, or a local data type, or it can be a global data type. So if it's a global data type, we can again divide it into two types. The first is the ABAP dictionary objects, and we can have it as ABAP dictionary, dictionary type group. There you go. So this is how you can on a grand scale you can divide the different types of data types which are available to us. So let's talk a little bit about the data objects. Well, data objects literally are temporary storage in the program and occupy memory to store the data, unlike the data types. So they contain the data for your program and will exist only for the duration of the program. So if a data object is defined using an elementary data type, its technical attributes are its length, number of decimal places, and data type. So for the data objects defined with reference to the data dictionary object, the technical attributes such as the length, number of decimal, the data type are derived directly from the ABAP dictionary object. So ABAP programs work with the contents of the data object and interpret them according to their data type. So you declare the ABAP the ABAP data objects statically in the ABAP program or either dynamically at runtime. You can either create the data objects dynamically when you call the procedure with the parameter, as such when you call a form routine with the parameter with parameters in the program treats literals like data objects, but literals are data objects with a fixed value. So data objects can be declared with the predefined data type, local data type, or global data type. And data objects defined in the program are you can declare it by the data statement, as I mentioned right here, and can be assigned a starting value which it will hold by default. I mean, like, not by default, by when you start your program, it might, if you want it to hold a value by a starting value to be exact, so you can add a value statement. So well, the BAP language contains these. Let's talk about a little bit about the data objects. So these are the different data objects which the BAP language can contain. So let's first talk about literals. So what are literals basically? So literals are unnamed data object with fixed values. So let's jot it down. So they are unnamed data objects with fixed values, and are created in the source. Let's call it source code of the program. So I see the 15 minutes mark being reached very soon. So continue and cover the different local and global data types in the next video. So guys, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. See you.